Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our live broadcast. So, hopefully, you can all hear this okay. We're going to be talking about the NAO forecast that we've just released earlier on today. So, we've released an NAO forecast for the winter of 2018 2019. Yeah, no, 2019 2020, isn't it? So I'm still in 2018 2019 mode. So if I sort of say 2018 2019, when I mean 2019 2020, I made a little mistake actually when I did the description on the NAO forecast earlier on today. I put down 2018, 2019 for that. So I'm kind of like still in winter 2018, 2019 mode. If I say winter 2018, 19, I mean winter 2019, winter 2020. Hopefully that explains about that. We had a long season a few months ago, winter 2018-19 updates, and I've sort of still got that a little bit on the brain. So it does take the brain a little while to sort of work out what we're talking about, whether we're talking about last winter or this winter, but we'll get there. So that's explained that. Right, so we've got quite a few people already in, so I can see on the live chat that we've got a few comments. So we've got Sharkey saying hello Sharkey, thanks for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Michael Dunn is looking forward to the live stream. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Rex Dragon is in, so hi Rex, and thanks for tuning in. BC Wood saying hello. Shiram is in with us, so hi Shiram, and thanks for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Adam Blunston is in as well, so hi Adam, thanks for tuning in to our live stream on this Sunday afternoon. Thanks so much for tuning in. So, what did you all think to the NAO forecast? And I think it's a little bit of a surprising forecast. We haven't done many NAO forecasts that are pointing towards a negative NAO. So I felt when I was doing it, it was probably going to be a little bit of a surprise for a lot of you. But we only go by what the data is showing, and it became apparent as we went along through May. And I will get a screen share on the go in a moment, and we'll go through those sea surface temperature anomalies again at NOAA. I'll go through it again, and we shall see how it evolved through the month of May. But the evolution of the sea surface temperature anomalies through May kind of like pointed us towards an increased chance of a neutral NAO anyway, possibly even a negative NAO too. So I thought it was quite apparent as it went along the way the evolution was going, and that's carried on as we get into it's carried on as we get into June as well. So again, I'll show you that in a moment. We've got 40 people watching us at the moment, so hello, good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to smash the like button if you are enjoying this live stream. I'm going to try and take some questions from you shortly. Now, I've embedded this into gazweathervids.com, the chat there, also embedded it to our social media feed too. So if I have time, I'll have a look at the questions you're answering, at the comments towards the end of the video. Going to try and ask if we can funnel most of the questions through the live chat here at YouTube. It just makes it a bit easier when I'm doing this solo if you've got all the questions in the same place, if you see what I mean. Out of 50 people watching, so hello, big thank you to all of you for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. So yeah, if we can keep as many of the questions as we can to the live chat at YouTube, it does make it easier for me to be able to see where all the questions are. When you ask your question, I'm going to do my best to answer as many as I can. But obviously, if we have a high demand, then it's going to be quite difficult. You can super chat, and in that case, your question sort of stands out. You will always get an answer. But otherwise, it's just a case of I'm going to answer as many as I can. and we'll see how we get on. So I think we've already got some questions coming in. So I'll go back through the super chat. I'll go back through the live chat, I should say, and I'll try and answer some of those questions. Then we'll get the screen share going. I'll go through some of those sea surface temperature anomalies again, and then I'll come back to the live chat once again. It'll make sense as we go along. So let's see if we can find a few. So we've got random YouTube viewer is saying interesting NAO forecast and certainly very exciting global weather updates, high global weather updates. Thanks for tuning in. Saying we better get beasts from the east this winter. Will it be a beastly winter? We'll have to wait and see. So Rex Dragon is saying that the NAO forecast is cool. So yeah, please enjoy that, Rex. Going through the chat a bit more, so we see that if we've got any questions. So Rex Dragon is asking, how different is this NAO forecast to other winters? So we've been doing the NAO forecast since 2012, always as the starting point of our winter updates, if you see what I mean. And I think we've only done a couple that's pointed us towards a negative NAO. I think we have one in 2012 itself. I think that was pointing towards a negative NAO, although it's a very long time ago now. I haven't refreshed myself with that 2012 NAO forecast for quite some time, but I think it was pointing us to a negative NAO. I'm sure someone will correct me on that. Also 2013, I forecast a negative NAO based on this sea surface temperature anomaly in May methodology. And that one didn't go very well. It went a little bit wrong, actually. In fact, the whole of the winter 2013, 2014 forecast did go very badly wrong. We noticed that horrendous winter when it didn't stop rain. It just poured from beginning to end, and there was continuous gales. We didn't pick that one up at all. It's probably the worst, one of the worst forecasts that I've ever issued. So we forget about that one. But since then, I think the NAO forecast has generally held up quite well. Most of them, though, of course, have gone for positive NAOs, particularly thinking of last year, where that strange sort of horseshoe shape of cold in the North Atlantic was very much pointing us towards a positive NAO for the winter of 2018, 2019. So that one was for very positive NAO. That one went fine, but the rest of the forecast went a bit awry. See what I mean? Because we can't sort of base the entire forecast on this NAO methodology. We have to look at other things too. That's where the winter updates come in that we start in September when we look at things like solar activity and things like that. This methodology is of looking at May sea surface temperature anomalies. The methodology is not enough on its own to be able to forecast an entire winter season. So what happened last year is that the NAO forecast did in fact point us towards a positive NAO for the winter of 2018-19, but the rest of the methodology really pointed us in a colder direction. So it's the NAO forecast actually that came out best last winter. Anyway, I hope that answers that particular question. Right, Shiram asking, how Yamin, do you know if we have a developing tripole signature in May in previous years, and can we get a very cold winter with a neutral or slightly negative NAO? So Shiram, yes, I think there have been past Mays where we have this developing tripole signature. I think May 1995 possibly one of those. And in terms of a very cold winter with a neutral slight negative, what I'd say about that is, of course, there are these other drivers. So although the NAO forecast is pointing to a neutral to slightly negative NAO, that doesn't mean that we can't get a more negative NAO being forced by external factors. And by that, I'm talking about if we was to get a big midwinter sudden stratospheric warming event, something like that. We're at solar minimum as well. So those other drivers start to become much more important when we're talking about the NAO being sort of neutral to slightly negative in terms of the Atlantic setup. It's possible that we could sort of force it into a much more negative state if the other drivers of the weather, the great drivers of weather, like ENSO, like solar activity, if they go in that direction. Of course, the alternative side, or the flip side of that, is that if those other great drivers of the weather start moving in a positive NAO direction, that could force this neutral to slightly negative NAO that we're talking about within the forecast, that could force it positive. So it's not a guarantee, this. And again, that's just why we have to do winter updates, why we can't just have the NAO forecast as just the sole sort of thing that we use to forecast the winter. We have to look at those other drivers, see what they're doing and what direction they're going in. Random YouTube viewer, January 1987. I think YouTube viewer was saying about January 1987. So let's have a look at that. January 1987 was amazing. I researched about it, and we had almost 2 feet of snow in Greater London. Yep, that's true. It was a very, very bitterly cold winter spell in January 1987. Probably the coldest single spell of weather since 1740. The maximum temperatures for 2 or 3 days were absolutely outstandingly cold, stayed below kind of -5, -6, -7 all day. I think 1 or 2 places in South East England possibly didn't get above -8 for a couple of days in January 1987. So it was an extremely cold spell of weather in an otherwise fairly nondescript winter. December 1986 actually very mild. February 1987 had a few cold snaps, but the focus really was on that single cold spell through the middle of January 1987 when it was outstandingly cold. We've got 57 people watching now. Thanks so much for tuning in on this sunny afternoon. Don't forget to smash the like button and let us know that you are enjoying the live stream. Paul Stanya is asking about percentage of certainty at this stage. So, Paul, I'd say with that the UK Met Office, because this is a UK Met Office methodology. So the UK Met Office say there's a 1 in 3, or is it a 2 in 3 success rate with this? I think it's a 2 in 3 success rate. So it's not a guaranteed methodology, but the past few years with this have been fairly decent with this NAO forecast. But again, I point out that they've primarily been forecasting positive NAOs, which is our default setup. A positive NAO is our default setup. This is going against the default setup towards neutral to negative NAO. So I would suggest that the percentage of certainty is lower with this, purely due to the fact that we are going against kind of like our default setup, which in the winter, in the UK, in Europe, in the Atlantic, the default setup is for a positive NAO. It's for westerlies, prevailing southwesterlies. So the percentage, because we're going for something that is against the norm, I suppose, the percentage in terms of confidence would be lower. But again, we do have the example of 2012, where we forecast a negative NAO, I think, and that one did turn out okay. So again, we do need to have a look at those other drivers, though. Mike Boyle is saying, hi Gav, is there a link between cold winters and the end of solar minimum? I seem to remember 2010 occurred at the end of solar minimum, and 2019 lines up with this. So, Mike, we know that around solar minimum, we do increase the chance of colder winters statistically, particularly in the early part of the following solar cycle, actually. So 2010 was actually the beginning of this current solar cycle number 24. So it tends to be like the first 1, 2, 3 winters early in the new solar cycle that are most have the greatest chance, if you like, of producing colder winters. But again, always keep in mind, this is not a guarantee. What solar activity does, being around solar minimum or just after it, kind of like loads the dice. It loads the dice in favour of a particular outcome in this circumstance of northern blocking, but it doesn't guarantee anything. There have been solar minimum winters in the past and early solar cycle winters in the past that haven't been cold for one reason or another. So although we're at solar minimum now, if, for example, we was to get a big El Nino, let's say we had a super Nino come up like we had in 1997, 98, or as we have in 2015, 16, even being at solar minimum or after solar minimum, having that super Nino come up would just override everything else, and we will get a very mild winter almost certainly. So always keep that in mind as well. There are so many factors very important for our weather. Moving down a little bit more, and then in about 5-10 minutes, I'm going to get the screen share going and have a look at those sea surface temperature anomalies. So just moving down to have a look at a few more of these questions. So Rex Dragon is asking, will you be updating us on more NAO forecasts from now till September 1st? No, this is it, Rex. So we issue the NAO forecast usually early July, but I thought we'd do it a day earlier, June, on the 30th of June this year. But it's normally around this time of year. That's it. That's the forecast that's the NAO forecast. It's based on May sea surface temperature anomalies. They won't be changing. Obviously, the sea surface temperature anomalies we had in the Atlantic in May are what they were. So the forecast is based on those sea surface temperature anomalies. So this part of the Galsworthy's winter forecast, this NAO forecast, is it won't change. So when we start winter updates, we will start from the point of view that the winter 2019-2020 NAO forecast is pointing to a neutral to negative NAO for this winter, and from that we will build on everything else by having a look at the rest of the methodology. Let's see if we can have a look at one or two more random YouTube viewer asking, Gav, what's your prediction for this winter? Too early for that, I'm afraid, random YouTube viewer. We won't be releasing the Galsworthy's winter 2019-2020 forecast until like the end of November, early December. I don't know what the date will be for that, but it'll be right at the end of November. That's when we'll release a forecast. It's much too early for me to say what I think the winter will be doing. I do think that where we're starting off at with this NAO forecast is a very interesting starting point. But again, we just need to see how things evolve over the next few months. There are forecasters out there that claim to be able to forecast like the winter, coming winter now. And if they can do that, then good luck to them. That's not the way I work, though. I like to start off with a blank canvas and sort of build everything upon that blank canvas as we go along. So I'd like to go into any particular season without any preconceived ideas or notions about what that season might do. And then we get to the end point, if you see what I mean. So it's too early for me to be able to say whether I think there's going to be a cold or a mild winter, but I will say that the NAO forecast is an interesting starting point. Look at one or two more. So we've got Max Crazy Storm. If we could get another winter 2009-10, that'd be great. So that's what a lot of people are waiting for. I think now I've got over 70 people watching. So thanks so much for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Don't forget to hit the like button. Let us know that you are enjoying this live stream. So yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for. They're waiting for another 2010, probably waiting for another December to remember, although bear in mind that December to remember in 2010 was the coldest December since 1890, and it was very nearly the coldest December in the entire CET record going back to 1659. So I mean, expecting another December 2010 is going to be a big ask, I think. But that's what I know a lot of people are waiting for. But remember, 09-10 was a pretty cold winter in its own right too. Running down for a few more. So Lee Kellyman asking, what's everyone's opinion on NASA's solar minimum prediction? That's an interesting forecast from NASA, Lee. I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but I will say I'm aware of it. And the next Solar Sunday, we're aiming to do another Solar Sunday in July or August. So the next Solar Sunday, we'll talk about that NASA forecast. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. But it is a very, very interesting forecast, to say the least. Going down the chat a little bit more. So let's have a look and see if we've got any more questions coming in. So City Andy is asking, how do you feel your summer forecast is progressing? Thanks, Andy, for asking that. Yeah, I think the summer forecast has done okay-ish. I think June was probably a bit more unsettled than we expected, but we did a little bit wetter, I suppose, than we expected. But we did say that we was expecting June to be the most unsettled month of the summer, and will probably be the coolest month of the summer too. A little bit more unsettled than we expected. We was looking to get a heat wave in June to tell us that the forecast was on track. You may remember I said that we was looking for one sort of 30-degree spell. We've had that during June, so that went okay. We're seeing signs through early July of high pressure sort of ridging in through the first week to 10 days of July, so looking quite high pressure dominated, although not particularly hot, but certainly a lot of dry weather. So what we're expecting, I think, from July onwards is just that we will have more episodes of high pressure, bringing warmer weather. And then we get to August, which we thought was likely to be the hottest and driest month of the summer. We did give that rather bold prediction, but I am a little bit concerned about that August is likely to be the hottest since 2003. I'm a little bit concerned about that. But still feeling that August will probably be the warmest, driest month of the summer. So we shall wait and see. Actually, I've got a couple of questions already in, but were emailed to me by Mark Kanish. So Mark was asking, will we see any more hot and sunny weather during July and August? I think I've answered that. We're expecting that there will be more sunny and warm weather through July and August. August, the month that we're looking for to be potentially the warmest and driest month of the summer. Mark was also asking, will we get locked-in blocking for winter at some point? So, I mean, eventually we're going to get a cold winter, Mark. It just depends when it's going to happen. Eventually we will get that big block feeling over Greenland and Scandinavia, and we will find ourselves going to a very cold spell of weather. It's just when it happens, and of course it's not our default setup. It goes against our typical setup, which means it doesn't happen very often. But at some point, inevitably, we will find ourselves going into a cold and into a blocked winter as well. Let's see if we can answer one or two more. I'm going to have to get the screen share going very shortly, but I'll just scroll down, have a look at one or two more if I can find them. So City Andy asking again, my worry this winter is that El Nino develops and overrides everything. It's always a concern, Andy, that could always happen, that you get a big El Nino coming up or something else unexpected happening. So there are various things that can go wrong along the way in summer, particularly for us, because as I always say, our default setup in the winter is for westerlies, is for the Azores high and prevailing southwesterlies to be dominant. So it takes quite a lot to come together to be able to get a cold winter. Got over 70 watching, 31 likes. Please hit the like button if you are enjoying this live stream, and thanks so much for doing that. Let's see if I can find one or two more questions. So we have Andy asking about the summer. Callum Evans, hi Gav, when will southern stratospheric warming occur again this year? I think that's unforecastable, Callum. You never know whether that's going to happen early, whether it's going to happen late. Typically, they happen in mid to late winter. The one we had last winter, which was a bit of a letdown, if you remember, happened early around Christmas and New Year. Normally, they happen after that. So it's just one of those things that's very, very random. Typically, they're later in the season, mid to late winter. But yeah, it's one of those things that you can't really answer when those southern stratospheric warmings are going to occur. Now, I saw somebody asking in the chat about the QBO, but I can't seem to find that question now, so that's rather annoying. So anyway, I'll have to go on. Just to say that I'm reading the chat as you're posting it. So if I miss anybody out, then really sorry about that. It's busy in the chat. Got 76 people watching now. You can super chat, and then your question will stand out. So if you do that, then I'll be able to see it. Otherwise, I'm just going through the chat. I'm going to try and answer as many as I can, but inevitably with this, unfortunately, some people are going to get missed out. So sorry to those people that get missed out with their questions. So just do a couple more, and then I think have a look at some sea surface temperature anomalies. So let's have a look at this one. We've got JARIS993 asking Gav, how does statistically a strong hurricane season convert into winter in Europe? Does it make a mild winter? Actually, it's the reverse, I think, Jay. So one of the things that we're looking in the winter updates is for what the hurricane season is doing, and look, see if we have an active hurricane season. If we have an active hurricane season, that can increase the risk of blocking and colder weather later down the line when you get through to the winter. So you think what hurricanes are doing, they are basically taking heat out of the tropics, and via these big storms, these huge areas of low pressure, they are dumping that heat from the tropics, distributing around the northern hemisphere, and ultimately dumping it into the North Pole. And that heat being dumped into the North Pole can later on, as you get to winter, translate back to an increased risk of blocking. I'm not sure what the statistics are on that, however. It's a Joe Bastardi theory. Joe Bastardi formerly from AccuWeather. That's one of his things that he looks for that I picked up on along the way. So I don't know what the statistics are on that, but we have included reanalysis though within the winter updates that we've done in past years. And I think reanalysis does back up the idea that the more active hurricane seasons tend to have an increased blocking. We've got 77 watching on this sunny afternoon, now getting very close to 80, 79. So a big thank you to all of you for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Mike, Master Chief, is asking, Gav, could you give links to the ENSO forecast? I can't seem to find them and need them badly. So are you talking about the CFS, Master Chief? So you're talking about that. Then yeah, I will try and get a link and post it in the description of this live chat. When I'm finished, that will take you to the CFS V2 website, and then you'll be able to navigate your way through the region 3.4, region 1 and 2, and so on, forecast at the CFS website. I think that's what you mean. Scroll down, have one or two, look at one or two more. Sean Donahue asking, hi Gav, why do you think the SSW, Southern Stratospheric Warming, had no effect this winter on us? It's just one of those things that does happen, Sean. I'm not sure there's any particular reason for it. I think it's quite random. And it has happened in the past that we don't get propagation down from the stratosphere to the troposphere when we get these warmings of the stratosphere. Maybe, actually, I think a lot of us probably got a little bit complacent about these sudden stratospheric warmings, thinking that they always result in cold weather and extensive northern blocking. Actually, historically, that's not the case. And there have been quite a few sudden stratospheric warmings, actually, that didn't result in northern blocking, particularly thinking about one that happened again around Christmas and New Year in the year 2001. And January, February, March of 2002 were very mild and very wet months. So that was a case of a sudden stratospheric warming that didn't have much effect on the troposphere and produce a northern blocking signal. We have the last few sudden stratospheric warmings up to this one last winter have been pretty decent for producing northern blocking. So I think possibly got a little bit complacent about those sudden stratospheric warmings. I think there was a idea creeping in that they always result in northern blocking and cold weather. But that is not, as we know from this last winter, which did turn out to be quite a letdown after southern stratospheric warming, that is not always the case. Nigel Clifford asking Gavin, why didn't it reach 35 degrees yesterday here in the UK? It was a big disappointment. I was a bit disappointed, sorry, peering at the screen trying to read the chat. I was a bit disappointed it didn't break the June records set back in 1975, actually 1976 and 1957. I'm not sure why that happened, Nigel, just again purely the fact that the air wasn't quite hot enough to do it. 35 degrees is a very high temperature, and it's a very high temperature for June. So the fact that our June maximum is June maximum ever temperature is 35.6 degrees in those 2 years, 76 and 57, and a long time since either year happened. And 76, of course, is like the daddy of summers. It's like the hottest, driest summer ever. So the fact that that only happens very, very rarely shows how unusual it is to get to 35 degrees in June. So July, August, you have a better chance of getting the temperature to and above 35 degrees, probably because just everything is warmer. The ground's warmer in July and August. The seas around the country are warmer in July and August, and so on. But it is what we had yesterday was a very hot day actually for June. We don't get all that many June days going to 34 degrees. 80 people watching now. Hello, and big thank you for tuning in on this Sunday afternoon. Don't forget to hit the like button and let us know that you're enjoying the live stream. Apple123, hi Gav. Thanks for the video. It was very enjoyable compared to the other negative NAO forecasts you have done. How does this forecast compare? I presume 2012 NAO was still more negative. Actually, I can't remember much about the 2012, 2013 NAO forecast. I'm pretty sure we went for a negative NAO for that winter. If anybody can have a look at that video at some point to let me know exactly what we was forecasting with that NAO forecast, I really appreciate it. Don't watch the videos back if I can help, because I don't like hearing myself talking. So I never really watch the videos that I record. I just put them out there and let people watch them and enjoy them. But if I can help it, I don't usually watch my own videos. So a little bit, it was a long time ago. It's quite a few years ago now. I've kind of forgotten exactly how negative we forecast that winter to be. I don't think we went overly negative, though. I think we probably went for a weekly negative NAO for winter 12-13. It probably ended up more negative than we expected, actually. But again, I'm a little bit uncertain about that. I think at that point we'll probably try and get the screen share working, and let's have a look if we can at some of those sea surface temperature anomalies from past years. So I'll just click on screen share, and hopefully that will work. So share. I don't seem to be getting that working. So something got a little bit wrong there, hasn't it, with the screen share? So let's see. There we go. And then to share. So that should be working the screen share now. So we're going to go down here. We are on the sea surface temperature anomaly charts at NOAA. And this is it. If you haven't been to this website, it's always really great to have a look at, because you can actually go a very, very long way back with these sea surface temperature anomaly maps. The farthest back we can go reliably is to 1996, but you can actually go all the way back to the 1980s. You come down here and click 1984 to 1988, these SST monthly mean anomalies. That will take you all the way back into the 1980s. Anyway, I just want to show you what happened during this May. So this is what we're basing the NAO forecast on. We start off with this. This is kind of like a signal for a positive NAO. We've got all this blue here around Greenland and going down towards Spain and Portugal. So that those are cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies. They're pointing towards a positive NAO. But by the end of the month, if we have a look at what happened by the time we get through to the 30th of May, see how those cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies have shrunk a lot. They're shrinking away from Greenland, you'll notice. So to the south of Greenland, it's rapidly warming up for the first time in quite a while. The tropical Atlantic is also looking quite warm as well. And the cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies are kind of like becoming centered around Newfoundland and going down towards the eastern seaboard of the eastern or northeast seaboard, I suppose I should say, of the States. And so that's much more of a sort of neutral to negative NAO type signal. It's not a classic tripole though. The latest sea surface temperature anomaly, that is much more indicative of a classic tripole signature. Notice how warm it is to the south of Greenland. Then we've got this colder band underneath it, again going from Newfoundland over towards the Bay of Biscay. I mean, to the south of that, it's quite warm again, heading down towards the tropical Atlantic. That's much more of a classic negative NAO signal. If that happened in May, then I would have gone further with this negative NAO forecast. Instead of being neutral to negative, I would have said just generally a negative NAO. The neutral part comes in because of the fact that May, whilst it was transitioning, the transition started through May to that negative NAO pattern that we've arrived at in June. The transition started in May. It wasn't fully there, if you see what I mean, during May. So that's why it's neutral to negative as opposed to being properly negative with the NAO forecast. Let's have a look at 2012. A lot of people are asking about 2012, so let's try and recap our memory. And this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies looked in the Atlantic as we started in 2012. So again, it wasn't a tripole signature at the beginning of May 2012. You'll notice the tropics was actually quite cool, and this sort of central northern part of the Atlantic was quite warm. So we certainly didn't start off with a tripole signature during May 2012. Let's see what happened by the time we get to the end of May 2012, the final day. And even then, actually, not all that much of a tripole signature. So, yes, it was significantly warmer than average to the south of Greenland, but then we have this cooler area through the middle part of the Atlantic into the tropical Atlantic. So I wonder whether I forecasted a neutral NAO for the winter 12-13 based on that, because it wasn't a classic tripole signature. I really will have to have a look at that winter 2012-2013 NAO forecast, see what I did predict, because that certainly isn't a classic it certainly isn't a classic sort of negative NAO signature, and the signal we've got in the Atlantic this year is better than that, I would suggest, for a negative NAO in winter through June 2012. This is how things progressed, and then much more of a classic sort of negative NAO signal, very warm to the south of Greenland, quite warm to the south of the Azores, heading into the tropics, this colder area here from the middle of the Atlantic into towards the eastern seaboard. So by June, we have properly evolved. June 2012 had a properly evolved towards a negative NAO signal. But with the forecast for the winter based on May sea surface temperature anomalies, I'd be surprised if I predicted that much of a negative NAO for that winter. I'll have to go back and have a look at that NAO forecast winter of 12-13. 2017 is an interesting year as well. This sea surface temperature anomalies looked in May 2017, beginning again without a tripole signature. Very warm through the tropical Atlantic in 2017. Quite cool over here, but also to south of Greenland, looking quite cool as well. By the end of May 2017, this is how things had evolved. So by the end of May 2017, we was looking like that. Again, warm through the tropics, quite cold around Newfoundland and heading over towards the Caribbean, cold and average there. But to the south of Greenland, actually cooler, quite substantially cooler than this year to the south of Greenland again. So I think with that one, we forecast a neutral NAO. And I think we said there was going to be a margin of error with that. So we could come out slightly negative for winter 2017-18 or slightly positive. Could be on either side of neutral with the margin of error. But I think that one was pointing towards a neutral NAO. For winter of 2017-18, with a better chance than the previous winters of cold weather. You see how unusual it is, though, to get a tripod. We don't get many of them, and certainly not in the month of May. It's been a long time since we had one in the month of May. This is 2013. This is the last time we actually had a tripod, I think, a classic tripod. We've got a classic tripod now. The last time we had that was kind of like March 2013, when we had that very cold March, coldest since 1962 or 1881. And you can see again, there's a cool sea surface temperature is there through the central part of the Atlantic, warm to south of Greenland, warm down in the tropical Atlantic. That's about the last time I can remember us having a tripole. Since then, really, to the south of Greenland, it's tended to be quite cool. And someone else was pointing out 2014, I noticed earlier on. So this is how the sea surface temperature is looking May 2014. So quite cool in the tropics in May 2014. It's warmer there than it is right now. And to the south of Greenland, not quite as warm as it is at the moment. That's how things look at the end of May 2014. And from that, I think you would just go for a positive NAO, really. There's no particularly warm area through the tropical Atlantic. It is a little bit warmer to the south of Greenland, but that's not a classic sort of scenario. The last time we had a classic tripole in the month of May, by the way, was a long time ago now, back in 2010. How the sea surface temperature anomalies in May look in 2010. And that really is a classic sort of example of a tripole. Look how warm it is to the south of Greenland and through the tropical Atlantic, and then this cooler area through the middle part of the Atlantic. That tripole actually got going through the winter of 09-10. It carried on all the way through 2010. Certainly to December 2010 anyway. So based on that, the forecast would have been for a negative NAO for the winter of 2010-2011. As I say, you go a very long way back with these. So the last thing to look at, I suppose, let's go all the way back to 1995. This is May 1995, just here. And again, pretty classic example of a negative NAO forecast for the month of May. So we've got this colder area, sea surface temperature anomalies here around Newfoundland, going down to northeastern seaboard of America. It's warmer around the Azores and heading down into the tropical Atlantic. This blue area is a bit annoying because that shouldn't be there. To the south of Greenland, it should just be warmer than average. That's another pretty good example from a very long time ago of a tripole occurring in the month of May, way back in 1995. Right, so let's turn off the screen share. So we'll stop sharing and we'll go back and have a look at the live chat. So let's see what's happening here then. So I hope you enjoyed that little look at the sea surface temperature. I'm sorry if I'm a bit rusty with all of this. It's been it's been a little while since I had the screen share on. So sorry if I'm a little bit rusty with what we're doing here. Let's scroll down and see what other questions we had. I hope you enjoyed that little look at those sea surface temperature anomaly maps. They're always fascinating to check out. So I'll leave the link to NOAA's website in the description here at YouTube, along with that link to CFS for the person who's asking about ENSO forecast at the CFS. I'll leave a link in the description with this video so you can check out those two websites for yourself. Right, let's see if we can work out where we was within the chat before I started screen sharing. And I think I'm going quite a long way up. So obviously there's been a lot of discussion since I've been screen sharing. So we shall go up and see if we can find where we got to. So Nigel Clifford asking there, do you think we will see temperatures above 40 degrees in the next 10 to 15 years here in the UK, just as France was experiencing over these last few days? Nigel, I'm going to say with that, I'm not sure, and probably not. 40 degrees, there seems to be something about the UK's sort of climate that limits the temperature getting to 40 degrees. This is famous last words, but I remember back in 2003 when we got to 38, there was a lot of expectation that very soon after August 2003, we would get to 40, we would get to 105. I think it's 105 Fahrenheit, 40 degrees. And it hasn't happened, actually. It's been a long time now, since 2003. We haven't got to 14 degrees since then, despite all the speculation at the time made, would happen quite soon. So I would say the chances of it happening, I mean, you can never rule anything out. It's believed that we probably reached 40 degrees in July 1808. So that's a very long time ago. Of course, it's believed we probably reached 40 degrees then. So it could happen, but there just seems to be something about the UK's climate that kind of like stops us getting to that, from kind of like upper 30s to the 40 degree sort of area. There just seems to be something about our climate that limits the temperature from being able to do that. Let's have a look at one or two more. Apple 123. Hi, Gavin. Thanks for the video. We did that one, didn't we? So we talked about 20. I think that's where we left off in the chat. Actually, I've been able to find where we left off before we went off screen sharing. Moving down, and we can see one or two more. So MVG Gaming saying June and July 2018 was really hot. Yeah, it certainly was a hot pair of months, MVG Gaming, in June and in July 2018. Not quite as hot with July 2018 as July 2008, but it certainly was pretty hot, to say the least. Let's see if I can see one or two more. So we've got Michael Dunn saying, hope next summer will be a scorcher. Well, Mike, we're not done with this summer yet. We're only on the last day of June, and it's been pretty hot in the UK anyway over the past 2 or 3 days. So we could end up with a scorching summer this year, never mind next year. But we shall see how that works out. So moving down, we've got Aaron Smith saying that SST anomaly looks rather quite warm for the South of Greenland there for 27/6/19. Yep, that's right. So the evolution has been towards warming the sea surface temperature anomalies up to the south of Greenland, cooling them down around Newfoundland and that part of the Atlantic, and then quite warm through the tropical Atlantic. And so that's where the tripole comes from, of course. Unfortunately, that's in June, not in May. So we're not able to forecast a fully negative NAO for this winter based on this methodology. But neutral to negative is what we've gone for. Let's see if we can have a look at one or two more. So it looks like we've got towards the end of the chat just there. So Michael Dunn is going. So see you again then, Michael. Hope you enjoyed the chat. And there we go. We're down to City Andy, and then I'll have a look at some other websites to see whether we've had any questions or comments at gazovers.com. And on Facebook and also on Twitter too. So City Andy, August 03 stands out in my memory. If this European heat wave that has just happened last week happened in July and August, do you think that it could have been a lot more severe? So it's possible that we might have been a degree or two up with the temperature if it had happened, if this heat wave had happened like late July, early August. Again, purely due to the fact that the ground would have been warmer, soil temperatures would have been warmer, seas around the UK, they would have been warmer too. So we may have been able to add on a degree or two more. I suspect we would have breached 35 if this heat wave that we had yesterday had happened in sort of late July, early August. I suspect we would have gone above 35 degrees. But probably not a great deal warmer than it was yesterday, actually. Apple 123, I wonder if there is a difference in weather pattern between a developing negative NAO in May compared to a well-established negative NAO. Good question, Apple. So I guess we'll find out through this winter, won't we, what the effects of the developments with this developing negative NAO signal through May and into June. I guess we will find out when we get through to the winter, just what effect, if any, that's had. Let's pop over and have a look at Twitter. So we'll see if we've had any questions over there. And then have a look at gazweathers.com. So Joe Garnett is with us, I think. So Joe is watching what we're doing there. Nick Jagger is saying that he missed the live discussion. No, Nick, it's still going on. You can pop over, have a listen if you want. We're still talking. So pop over and see what's happening if you want to. So I think that is pretty much all of the questions that we had over on Twitter. Let's have a look at gazweathers.com to the chat there. See if I had any questions there. I did ask most people if they could funnel their questions through to YouTube, just because it makes it that bit easier, really, for me to be able to see all the questions that are in one place. So we doesn't look like I had any questions at Gaz. Well, it's Nigel Osborne saying that it's reached 75 Fahrenheit where he is today, feeling very pleasant compared to yesterday's heat. So yeah, it has been a nice afternoon with a nice breeze to enjoy. We're on Facebook next and see whether had any questions over there. And I'll go back to YouTube and we'll wrap things up. We'll wrap things up at 6 o'clock. So we'll around 10 minutes, I think we'll probably start to wind this down. So again, waiting for Facebook to load. I always find Facebook runs very, very slow. I don't know whether anybody else has noticed that, but Facebook must be the slowest website on the internet. So it's very strange that with all their money, they have such a slow running website. But I don't think we've had any questions posted on Facebook. So no, you have. So we'll go back to YouTube. And we'll just have a look at one or two more of these on YouTube. And then I say, well, I think we'll wrap this up around 6 o'clock. So we've got 71 people watching. So big thank you to all of you for tuning in on this Sunday evening. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and let us know that you've enjoyed this discussion about the NAO forecast that we released earlier on today. So we've got Chelsea Bill 123. What effect does the sea surface temperature in the North Pacific have on our weather? That's a good question, Chelsea Bill. Particularly that northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. Over the past few years, it's been quite warm up there, and it has tended to coincide with a lot of our milder winters. That sort of northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. I think that's because it sends the jet stream onto a northwest-southeast alignment through America, through the United States, and that pulls cold air out of that northwest-southeast alignment of the jet stream, pulls cold air out of Canada down into North America, and then that can kind of like blow up the jet stream as that cold air runs out of the east coast of America into the Atlantic. You get the cold air running over the warm ocean, blows up the jet stream, and that can create cyclogenesis that then brings low pressure sweeping from the east coast of America into the UK. And of course, that's a mild signal during the winter. So I'd like to see it go cold in that part of the Pacific Ocean. And that'll be one of the things we'll be looking at through the winter updates, I think. As I say, it's really warm up there in that northeastern part of the Northern Pacific at the moment. We're going to want to see that cooling down, I think, over the next few months if we want to get a cold winter. I think it will be quite difficult, probably not impossible, because nothing with weather is impossible, but I think it'd be probably quite difficult for us to get a cold winter if the sea surface temperature anomalies stay as warm as they are in that northeastern part of America at the moment. So we've also got Rex Dragon. Also, why can't we measure June in the NAO forecast? Gav, to be honest, I've always been very unsure about this part of the NAO forecast, Rex. So it's a UK Met Office methodology, this, to use May sea surface temperature anomalies for what in the Atlantic for what could happen in the following winter. I'm unsure why you can't, for example, use April or June or July or any other month before the winter. So I do know a few people at UK Met. I'll have to shoot one of them a message and see if I can get an answer to that. Why specifically it is May sea surface temperature anomalies that we look at. I suspect, as I said in the NAO forecast video, probably because the Atlantic is at its most sort of quietest. It's at its most benign, if you like, through the month of May. I suspect that's the reason, but again, I've always been unsure about why it should be May and not April or June, or not a combination, say April, May, June, or May and June and July. I've always been quite unsure about that. So it seems to work, though, this methodology. I have to say that over the years, it seems like the NAO forecasts have held up quite well generally. Of course, there's always one or two exceptions, but generally the NAO forecasts do seem to hold up quite well. So it seems to be something that works, but quite why it is that month of May that's so important, I'm a little bit unsure. Neil Smith asking or saying, great live broadcast, Gavin. Thank you for doing this. Hope we have a negative QBO with a neutral NAO to increase the chances of a cold winter. So the QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation, should be transitioning from its westerly to its easterly phase through this winter. We're in the westerly QBO now. We'll have the next number in for the QBO for this month, June. That will be released by NOAA sort of 2 or 3 days into next month, into July. So very soon we'll know what that QBO number came out at for June. We will be seeing a transition from the westerly to the easterly phase of the QBO by the end of the year. I would have thought, very likely to be transitioning by then. It's going to be a question of how early that transition happens. If this is a relatively short westerly QBO, then the transition could already be well underway by kind of like November, December. If it happens to be a longer westerly phase of the QBO, but it might not be until late winter that we start to transition. So that will be something that we'll be focusing on through the winter updates. I'm quite sure what's happening with that transition with the QBO. Shiram, thanks going for a really interesting and informative live stream. I hope we get a cold winter for 2019-2020. Thanks so much, Shiram. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We've still got 64 people watching us. We've been on for over an hour, or nearly over an hour now. So big thank you for sticking with it and for enjoying this live stream, for asking all of your questions. Hope you have enjoyed this Sunday afternoon live stream discussing the NAO forecast. Dean Ball, hey Gav, do you have an archive of weather month by month, year by year? PS, should do more live episodes. They're great. Thanks so much, Dean. There is the archive at Weather Central. They have a historic archive of charts. I think that's what you're asking for. They have a historic archive of charts going back to 1851. We link to West Central in the description in all of the videos. It's one of the primary websites that we use for our videos. So go over there, have a look. You can see every day's weather chart all the way back to 1851. Really, really fascinating. And there will be more live streams coming up. I'm planning to make this a weekly feature from September. Every Sunday around 5 o'clock, we'll do a stream like this to coincide with the winter update. So live streams are going to get more frequent, hopefully, at the channel and on Gaz Webbies if you enjoy them. I think you do. We've got 50 thumbs up, and we've had 70 people watching, so I think that's pretty decent for our live stream for this afternoon. We're going to go very shortly. Lilac Floyd is saying cheers. Thanks so much, Lilac, for tuning in on this sunny afternoon. And yeah, I think that's it. Dean Ball saying, Ace, thanks, Gav. Weekly feature on a Sunday would be great. That's what we're aiming for from September, to make this a weekly, hour-long sort of weather show, weather discussion. And yeah, hopefully everybody will enjoy that. So that'll be starting from September. It's really difficult for me to do the winter updates though, because I'm recording late on Saturday evenings, and they can last for an hour, so they're very, very tiring to do, and then to do a live stream on Sunday afternoon, it may be a bit too much, but we shall see. I'm going to see if we can do a live stream every Sunday in the around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And as I say, that'll be starting from September. Right, so an hour-long live stream. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, then please give us a thumbs up if you haven't yet, and let us know that you enjoyed this live stream. Thanks so much for tuning in and sticking with it for an hour. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Thanks so much for asking your questions and for your interactivity. So yeah, just a big thank you to all of you for doing that. And I'm going to wind the video up right now and say again, thanks so much for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Bye for now.